Welcome to Forevermore. This is my Minecraft Forever world. I've been playing on it since February of 2025. So it's about 16 months or so since I started at the time of recording this. It is a modern Minecraft Bedrock Edition world. I've kept up with it through the updates. I started on a really cool seed that I found online, which I will post in the description. One of the advantages of the seed is that it has tons and tons of kind of proverbially fenced in areas due to the prominence of how many stony peaks run through it in these really cool shapes. One of the drawbacks is it has very little biome diversity. So we'll get into the start here. So this is a region that I call Crown Mountain, and more specifically down there, that is the Crown Mountain crater where I have my main base, the ziggurat. It's not really super shaped like a ziggurat, but that's okay because it kind of translated into its own unique build style over time. Through here is my first base, or the ruins of it, is just this big, like, 3-story kind of like 15 by 15 or 17 by 17 hole in the wall. Now it's ruined because it had to make way for a new structure. Starting on the seed was really challenging because of just the extreme elevation. It was really tough to navigate, and the resources that I got were not super diverse. So I kind of had to bum rush the Ender Dragon for end game gear like shulkers and, most importantly, elytra. I was really exploiting like boats and such to negate fall damage when I first started. In order to see around here and just kind of figure out and plan out how I was going to build, I had to chop down basically every tree, so everything that you see here has been replanted. I obviously replaced the calcite strips that normally form in Stony Peaks biomes with geode strips. And all of the glowstone you see up here was once naturally generated ores, such as coal and iron, which happen a lot at these high elevations. So I replanted all of the jungle trees and added all these lush cave elements just to kind of give this area a unique feel. Because there's just not a lot of biome diversity on this world, if I want to make something that's basically like anything other than like a jungle or Stony Peaks based build, which I most certainly do, I have to get kind of creative with it and do a lot of terraforming. The time spent terraforming gives a lot of opportunity to kind of make unique biomes. So this down here in the crater, it's like a lush cave and a jungle kind of put together, with lots of nice particle effects given from the spore blossoms. That's what they're called. Got this nice little overhang here, which is natural. I chose to keep it in. As we get closer and closer, this is a survival world. I play by rules enough that don't disable achievements. It's vanilla. I don't have any data packs or anything like that running. So as we make our way down here, I'll note that I do play in peaceful a lot just because I don't like having my inventory taken up by the extra weapons and food and just things that are associated with it, though I do certainly play on easy or normal or hard if the situation calls for it. As you can see here, days played is over 5,000, but a lot of that has been spent AFKing various farms that I'll show off later. So rather than go up the grandiose steps, just for the flow of this tour, I'm actually going to go in through this little side door and head up to the top. So if you felt like you missed out when you saw that my original base was in ruins, we've got almost a 1-to-1 recreation of it. Of course, I've refined the design of it over time to be a little more functional, and of course, I've gotten blocks and progression milestones that I have now that I didn't have whenever I was first starting out, because that initial rush was maybe like 2 real-life weeks before I started to move down here into the bottom of the crater. So down here, you can see we've got a really nice view of this perfectly mathematically spaced beacon pattern I'm really fond of. And look up towards where we descended from, the spawn area right up there in the mountain peak. Call it the crown for obvious reasons. It's pointy, it's a perfect ring shape, all the jewels laid into it. So when we descend down, I don't use this area as much as I used to, but up top we just have a nice hangout area. This used to be where I would smelt everything, but kind of made innovations on it as we go, and this place just becomes more and more decorative as my means of storing and processing materials and tools and all that becomes more robust. So right here is the media area that we're looking at. This entire river that runs around, the Ring River, is completely artificial. Down here, this crater, of course, has been completely replanted to resemble a new hybrid biome. This is the ziggurat itself here in the center, and you can see a nod to lots of other little structures poking out here in the ring that we'll get to, the crown, as I call it. I just designed this little banner to kind of illustrate where we're at. You got the mountain with the beacons going up. I don't love the color palette, but I do like the symbol that it's got going, so I might tweak that later. Here we got this little sign that says the Pioneer of Crown Mountain Crater and an armor stand. That's because it's meant to hold the armor that I'm currently wearing right now. Every sub-region that I have in this world, I kind of mentally break this place down into lots of little sub-regions that are themed with unique building styles and biomes and whatever that I put in with terraforming. Each one has its own kind of armor type that I like to wear when I'm working on it. Sometimes the enchantments are tuned to what I do in the world. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. It's just a generic suit of enchanted armor that I have. This one has the wild trim. It's the one that you get from jungle temples, which I thought was appropriate for the jungle biome. And the inlay material, the trim material, is emerald, which will become apparent why later. But this area is kind of the like center of the cell, the nucleus of the entire world, where everything kind of gets stored en masse and things get made en masse, and everything relates back to the center. Right now it's very elytra dependent. Again, it was just so hard to traverse up front, and I wanted to transition into working on the world in a big way super fast. I was just excited because I knew this was going to be my forever world. Now the sun's come up. But now that it's spent over a year, like, pretty stable, I'm going back and trying to add footpaths and get less elytra dependent. The only build that I'm really, like, trying to make intentionally elytra dependent is the access points to the ziggurat here, just because I'm always going to be working on something far away and need to zip back here real fast for my main resources. So this is the first room we'll get into, and I do apologize that the ziggurat is a bit empty right now. It's because it's actively undergoing renovations. I'm kind of updating my build style. I'm a bit inspired by builders like BOO here on YouTube and a lot of the Hermitcraft. I do think that for my taste and what I want to make, what I think is fun to actively build and play on, their builds are a little overly detailed, and I just don't have the time in my life that they do to kind of keep up with that. Nothing would ever get done if I went for the level of detail that they were going for. But at the same time, I do like the kind of revolution, the era that we're in right now with Minecraft Online, intense artistic builds. I also have my own thing where I tried to use materials that suggest something about the build. So it can be as simple as this example where everything is kind of made out of stony materials and calcite, which is up there in the mountains with the geodes, and just things that you would find around here with the jungle wood and such. But enough about that for now. This is where I keep all of my enchanting books. I have this little mechanism where we have real bookshelves up against decorative bookshelves. So if I take this in my hand, you can see that I got one enchanted book and it instantly refilled. That's because there's a hopper behind this feeding it, and then a barrel, and then another hopper, and on the very top, another barrel. So there's over 2 barrels worth of all of these enchanted books in here that just kind of automatically feeds these bookshelves. And then if I have more than that, I have these shulker boxes here with the barrels underneath it. The number of enchantments that you can find on books has increased since I started this, but it's still pretty tight. Just got lucky with the size of this room and the shape of the bookshelves that it really layered out really nicely. It's gone through a lot of different changes. I used to have just a bunch of shulkers in the floor, and like these were functional bookshelves going all the way up, but I am playing on a PlayStation 4, and entities and stuff like that can really start to lag, and because this is the central area of my world, I'm really trying to reduce lag because it's where I spend the most time, and I have some redstone farms here that don't do super well whenever things get laggy. Over here, I'm obviously moving things around, but I've got these armor stands, or single armor stand here in the nook. This one's holding a book right now that tells me about how many enchanting levels I need to make, like, my default types of armors and weapons and tools and stuff that I work with on this world. So he just holds that right there. So moving on, this is one of the more under renovation rooms. This is the forge tower. This is theoretically where I make a lot of things. It is where I do a lot of my smelting and creating fuel and such, but I don't do a lot of crafting here, and I'd like to change that. I'm kind of not just renovating the materials that the floor are made out of. I don't particularly like this pattern right now, just trying things out. But I'm trying to renovate the materials that things are made out of to kind of better use the materials that are around. Like in here, I'm trying to use basalt from the geodes, theoretically, that are naturally, with quotation marks, occurring throughout the peaks. And I'm also just trying to make the area a little more useful so that I actually want to spend more time in here. But got two redstone contraptions that I probably need to explain here. So there's a YouTuber called Silent Whisperer who does really great redstone tutorials specifically for bedrock. I don't know if all of his designs are completely his, or if they're an amalgamation of other redstone people in the community, and then he just creates tutorials, but I'm pretty sure it's a mix of both, and he properly credits in his videos. So here we've got this rotating super smelter. It's one of my favorite redstone things in the world, and of course it is entirely informed by his work. So for instance, if I take some bricks and I decide to load them up here, make sure there's nothing left over in here, got some extra bricks from last time I smelted. This lights up, indicating that there's stuff in it, making sure that we have fuel ready to go, and we can just flip this switch. And on bedrock additions, entities like this, furnaces, can be pushed by pistons and they retain their data as they move around. So these are all actively smelting these bricks into cracked bricks for a future build I have planned out way in advance. And they dump into these two different chests depending on what stage they are in the cooking. But yeah, it goes all the way around and it looks very pretty. I've got it set behind this kind of screaming mouth motif that I have littered throughout this build and a couple other jungle themed builds. But this kind of lags a little bit if I keep it running forever and ever, so we're going to go ahead and shut it down now and get back to that later. No reason to keep it going. This is an actually functional forge right here, so you can classic trick all the way back from like 2013. It's got crafting tables behind it that don't burn despite lava flowing right over it, so you actually can craft in this thing. And then this isn't like the most advanced thing in the world, but I thought it would be cute. I included a little lava farm right under it, because why not? So if we go back up, over here where I get a lot of my fuel is I'll load a shulker of bone blocks up, and then behind it I have this etho clock going with these two hoppers, so it times it perfectly so that the crafters here can craft the bone blocks into bone meal, but it won't overload the system. That goes into these chests, which is enough for all of the bone blocks to be completely turned into bone meal without overflowing and spitting on the floor. And you can flip this as another thing I got from Silent Whisper. Pretty simple, just an automatic farm. It's bone meals, the bamboo blocks get hit by pistons, and then they go into these hoppers. And then as they load in there, it runs down to, I can't remember what YouTuber I got this from, but it's a pretty well-known like style of build to like, hey, if you get a whole block of something, compress it here. It does get jammed up a little bit whenever I unload and reload the chunk, but whenever the bamboo goes in here, you can see like as soon as it hits enough for a bamboo block, it gets triggered here and crafts it, and we have this whole mess of bamboo blocks. So it is a perfect one-to-one bone blocks of bamboo blocks, and I've got a bone meal farm, which we'll show as the very last thing in the tour. It's not super worth ascending the towers in most of these places because they are empty because I'm moving things around, or I'm just trying things up that are mostly ugly and I haven't settled on yet. But this is ideally where I store all of my armor and tools and weapons, and also craft a lot of related items. Up here, I've got kind of all my stuff in like moving boxes, if you will. I have every single armor trim in the game that is then laid into like what I would consider a perfect or relevant suit of netherite armor. And those are kind of waiting to be used for regional areas as they go. Rather than use the ziggurat as like a big trophy tower thing, like a big display or museum, I'm trying to make unique little builds for everything in other regions, and I'm working on that right now. So a lot of the more like, here's every armor trim, here's every this and that, is getting moved out. It also, a lot of that stuff comes down to being entities, so it reduces the lag when I'm running around here. You're gonna see like little moving boxes and shulkers and stuff strewn throughout, because again, I am actively moving. So the next thing that we see over here is the alchemical tower. I really need to redo the floors in here. I think they look really gaudy. Again, another Silent Whisperer tutorial. Basically, it's as simple as you can walk up here, choose whatever potion you want. I've already got it calibrated for exactly what variant of that potion I would like, whether it's a Jump Boost Second or Night Vision Plus. So you can just hit this button, and it's perfectly calibrated to move the freshly made potions down into your shulker, and then load it up and start crafting a new batch right there without having to sit there and babysit it and load in the ingredients yourself. These do get very tall based on the complexity of the potion, and pretty much every single one of these droppers is maxed out with whatever the relevant potion ingredient is. And considering how long potions last, you can essentially consider this like a multiple lifetime supply of every single potion I'll need in the game. Except for Potion of the Turtle Master, because I haven't done skewed farming yet, but we'll get there. If you're wondering where I got some of this, most of these ingredients are not that hard to find or farm. Down here, I've got where I get all my nether wart. And in this little spare shulker, I've got a bunch of soul speed boots, because I don't really use them much, and they're just fun to run around with, my gardening boots. Over here is the most empty one, because it's been the most renovated. I've moved just about everything out of it. It really was just like the trophy room. I'm trying to convert it over into more of like an art wing, like a culinary and art wing. So like where you would make all the dyes and store a ton of different color variations of like glass blocks and clay and stuff. And keep like a bunch of pottery sherds to make new pottery, banners, where you can cook different food and keep a bunch of food ingredients, maybe some like instant farms like you saw with the bamboo over there for a bunch of different relevant blocks, dye makers, etc. This is, as of recording this, every pottery sherd in the game. I still need to move that out, but looks neat on display. But yeah, through here is my map room. I knew from the start that I was going to put this in the nether just to reduce the amount of lag. Hopefully the game doesn't crash. It has a real tendency to crash when I go into the nether. So this build is just kind of suspended in the air in the nether. It doesn't matter because it's completely enclosed, and I don't really have plans to build anything too serious in the nether that you would see from afar. So up here is a much more detailed map of the world that I have hidden back here, so it doesn't lag the ziggurat area and tank my frame rate. But this, what you're looking at, when I say forevermore sometimes, I don't just mean like the world save. This is kind of what I consider to be the region of forevermore. One of the things to try to help make this world as cool as possible is keeping all my builds together, and this is a pretty grand region here. You're looking at about a 1,500 block across area. I was talking about earlier how stony peaks kind of help keep me pinned in, which is something that really helps me stay creative. I don't really know where to start or guide a lot of my larger builds if I don't have some natural boundaries, and this world comes with those perfectly. It also, can be really burdensome to my time that the biomes are not very diverse, and so if I want to build in, say, an oceanic biome within this area of boundary, I kind of got to make my own water body. We'll get there again towards the end of the tour, but that lake is completely artificial as well. The cherry grove around it is artificial, and this used to be entirely jungle, but it's not even completely up to date. All these woods are gone now because I've completely chopped it down, and I'm turning it into a mega taiga. So if I grab my little magnifying glass here. So again, just like up top, you can see that this is the ziggurat. There's a better look at Ring River. I've got a natural village right there, pretty much the only one within the boundary of Forevermore, and I'm currently reworking that for a future build. But this is kind of a peek of things to come very, very long term to give you an idea of the world we're looking at. And again, if you like this, I will put the seed for the world in the description. It's not going to come out exactly the same, as you'll see in some before and after photos that I edit in later as I talk. I've had to do a lot of work on terraforming, and so if you're looking for a one-to-one, you can't really get that unless you somehow find a way to generate this on Bedrock back in like one of the 1.21 updates. Now the generation has changed a little bit. Most noticeably, the stony peaks become a little fatter and wider in a lot of areas, and they're not quite as perfectly delineated. They get broken up by grass a lot now if you generate it today. So for the next bit, as we go down, I have pretty recently renovated this area too, and I'm still working on it, but I'm okay with how it looks right now. This is my mass storage area. It is not automated. I find that a lot of sorting just gets like way too technical for me on this level, or it's just the stuff that I can understand is a little too slow. So I don't mind just doing it by hand. So down here, the system is basically like at the bottom, you have the block that you're storing. You have a barrel full of shulkers, if you do have multiple shulkers of that particular block, all full of cobblestone. And the first shulker is for the raw block that you're storing in its most common form, and then up top is variations of that block. And usually once the variations go, if I feel the need to, I'll color code it differently. Good example is over here with deep slate. The most common one for me is cobbled deep slate, and then less common variants that I get from, say, ancient cities, all these building tiles and stuff, all this processed deep slate, gets a gray shulker box. And I have more area for expansion with these two wings up top. For instance, we just got the sulfur cube update, so I've got the sulfur related blocks and their variants up here. So we come down here, this was one of the most freshly renovated things. So this area is now meant to fly an elytra through. It's a lot wider than it used to be. It used to be a 3x3x3 tunnel where I kept all of my librarian villagers that gave me all the books you saw up there. Recently decided that they had simply produced enough for me. I've still got the emeralds I used to trade with them down here. So they've been moved off into retirement, and we'll catch up with them later. And I've reworked it to be a little prettier, more of the newer build style that I'm approaching, where it does incorporate still the kind of texturing that you see in a lot of modern Minecraft builds now at a higher level, but it's also still using materials that would make sense. You know, these are stone and stone variants that can be found within this mountain, and mud is like reasonable, I think, for a jungle build. Over here, we've got my little tree farm. It's not automatic. I'm working on an automatic one for the future. But right now, this is as simple as it gets. You plant your tree here on your substrate, which I've got my saplings and substrates set aside. You take the little water elevator. You come up here, you chop the tree down. Everything that you don't pick up drops down here into the water and gets collected in this collection bin. And then anything that you don't want, you can put here in the hopper and it turns it into bone meal. This is really an example of the style that I'm transitioning away from, but I don't think it's awful. I do think it's kind of neat in here, even though it's a little gaudy. So using an elytra, kind of demonstrating here, you can go to the very edge, and out here pokes out the side of the mountain to the northern region that I've been working on a lot, so it's easier to fly down through this tunnel to get right back to my main storage and crafting area as I need to. But we can go up here, and this will kind of shed some light on why I have so many emeralds, why I have so many resources in general, and why I'm so overpowered in this world. So this little room is clearly not done. Again, I'm still renovating things. This build in general is not done, but it's done to the extent that it needs to be practical. So this world has a motto, which is abolish limit, conquer death, or conquer death, abolish limit. Conquering death doesn't mean never die. It means when you die, it's not a big deal. Even if you have fully enchanted netherite gear and a bunch of stuff on you, it's just not that big a deal when you die because you've got more of that you can very easily replace in a few minutes. I think that's key to me having a forever world, is being able to avoid like rage quitting like that. Uh-oh, about escaped. So these guys are the powerhouse of my world. I have a farm that, again, will be the very last thing that I show, that produces ludicrous amounts of tropical fish and bone. So all of this is tropical fish. And then I can trade tropical fish with these guys at a rate of 1 tropical fish per emerald, and then that allows me to afford everything at discounted prices from basically every other villager type in the game. So you can quickly catch on that we just have a district for every single type of villager. These guys aren't for selling me enchanted books, they're more for selling me things like glass, lanterns, name tags before they were craftable, and most importantly, bookshelves. Back here is a redstone contraption I don't really use anymore. It's really made with a bunch of spaghetti redstone. It was one of the first things I ever made that was complicated redstone. That wasn't just one-to-one from a tutorial. So the idea was that you would load bone shulkers up there. Shulker box is completely full of bone blocks. It would break it down into bone meal, and then it would break the sugarcane, which would drop down through here, and it made a lot of sugarcane, which would ultimately be turned into paper, which I would then sell with the librarians. This was before I made a farm that made tropical fish, which is just the easiest for me to get. But back in the day, this would make 36 shulkers of just nothing but paper. So if we move on, I don't feel the need to stop for every single one of these things, because they're not super interesting, and some of the interior design decisions are kind of questionable. This was a working farm for my farmer villagers, but they were actually harvesting it and then breeding and then stealing each other's beds and kind of creating a crisis. So I've disabled it for now. Through here is where I get like my armor, my weapons, my tools, and a lot of them sell at ridiculously low rates. I like to also get Hero of the Village and get these down even further, but as you can see, like less than seven emeralds for enchanted diamond armor is pretty intense, and those kind of prices carry throughout this district. So as we kind of walk through here, I'll take a little more time to talk about the ethics of the world. Yeah, I do play on peaceful a lot. I do use creative copies of the world, but I have this persistent version of the world that is the master version, where achievements are still earnable. I only really use creative to see where things are or plan out builds, and then I do it for real in here. I do use chunk base. Obviously, I found this seed online, like I keep saying, so there's a lot of caveats to it that some people might consider cheating, but in the eyes of Microsoft and Mojang, this is a completely legit world, and I intend to keep it that way, because if it weren't, I think all the fun would suck out of it for me. These guys are how I get all my glowstone. If we go out here, this one is a lot more stylized, mainly because I think cartographer villagers are a little useless as they are right now. They're just not that useful. But I want more of these areas to be more decorated like this. The idea is that since they make maps all day, they walk out to these like bamboo cages where they can see below them, they can see afar, and they can kind of like sketch out their maps and such. So I like the hanging cage thing we got going on. You can see I've got like leftover railroad from still working on this. So these areas are left unfinished because I just simply haven't needed the other villagers that I haven't put in here yet. But there is room for 14 or 16 villager types. Currently there are 14 that produce anything, and that leaves a little room for the future if they ever add more villager variants. So if we come out here, I've got this nice bridge that leads us into the north, where I'm currently developing something that we won't spend much time on out here. This gives us a nice overhead view of Ring River, named very obviously. I try to make all the names for stuff really utilitarian and easy to remember, because I actually want to use them. I know some people like have a tendency to name their stuff in like Elvish or like a language that they don't speak, and then it comes out with like a ton of vowels, or it's just really complicated to remember. I try to make everything very simple. Crown Mountain, it's a mountain that's shaped like a crown. Crown Crater, it's the crater in the crown. The Ziggurat, it looks like a ziggurat. Ring River, it's a river in the shape of a ring. Northern Bridge, it's a bridge that goes to the north. So on screen, I'm going to show a little before and after. It's not perfect, but that's a photo from a recently generated version of this world with nothing built in it. So you can kind of get an idea of how much work was put into it. So we're just going to hop off here, and I'm going to take this moment to do a little more explaining about the world and its origins as we go around Ring River, which doesn't have much built in it. So this is a solo world. I have had many friends walk around on it a little bit. Some have left beds behind and stuff, but this is all just me. Everything that you're going to see today is me. The closest thing to an exception is a friend of mine. We like to hop in Discord and catch up because we grew up together and we're long distance now. But he helps me do a lot of like chopping down trees and some of the more boring terraform tasks, and we'll just stay up late at night doing stuff like that. But everything you see built is me. I basically dug this area kind of down to like dirt level or stone level, and then replaced it with stone half slabs. It wasn't really necessary. I was doing it to try to stop mobs from spawning. I was mainly worried about drowns, but turns out they only really generate in like oceans and natural river biomes anyway, of which this is neither. So I didn't have to worry about that as much, but you know, whatever. It's still cool. It also provides another level of transport around this world. Through here is a little tunnel that I really need to furnish, but I kind of cheated because I just got sick of lowering the terrain around here. You can see that's where the half slabs start back up again. But I think there's a lot of potential for a cool, like, tunnel part of that anyway. This part doesn't really fit super well into the rest of the tour by flow because it's kind of based on infrastructure that doesn't exist yet. But this is by foot a little bit more of a grand entrance if you're taking the river to get to the ziggurat. So we've got another motif here of like this big column. This is kind of a major, like super large version of the elytra tunnel you saw the back way out earlier. And I had to kind of mathematically line this up so that it was perfectly flush with the ziggurat at the end, but also made room for this perfectly lined up circle of beacons. So right here we got where the cave kind of cracks in, and then it leaks these spores everywhere, so you've got some moss growing throughout here. Behind every one of these letters, this is the enchantment table language, this lettering. Behind every one of them is a geode, which was terrible to build. It's all hand-placed. You'll see where I got all this amethyst from later. And then it opens up finally into this hole I had to punch to give you a really up-close view and entrance to the ziggurat. And there we are again. So one of the things worth noting is that, like, there were almost no cave systems present in any of this. This was all solid mountain that I had to mine through. Beacons helped. You know, this is why I rushed like in-game gears, because these were the kinds of builds I had in mind, and this is the center of the world, so this is where I set up. These enchantment table letters, if you were wondering, spell out the world motto, which is conquer death, abolish limit. I explained the conquer death part earlier. The abolish limit one is just like, I want to be able to build whatever I imagine building, and I don't want a particular resource, or the lack thereof, the scarcity of it, to hold me back from that being possible. So like this river, I don't want there to not be enough stone for me to reasonably make this build. So we're shooting for absolute abundance. So if there's something that's kind of hard to get, I tend to make redstone farms for it or look up ways to do it. I've got a farm for, say, the geode blocks that I had in there, which is pretty primitive, but, you know, it works. Just because I said one day, wouldn't it be super cool to have geode strips running through the mountain? But normal survival world me before this would have said, well, like, geode is, like, way too expensive. Amethyst blocks are way too expensive. It'd take forever to find that. I want to overcome limitations like that. That's the abolish limit part of this. Got a few fish in here. I intend to plant more. This little stretch is called the Narrows. I haven't done much with it. I think I just kind of like it natural how it is this little tight squeeze. So you come up in the northeast part of the ring to this little ruin. And before we hop in there, we're going to take advantage of it being night. I'm just going to show you what the bridge looks like from the outside. So up here you can get a nice view of the bridge. It is lit up on all four sides with frog light, and it does have the same world motto in enchanting language: abolish limit, conquer death. So if we come back down here, so yeah, you come upon this ruin, and I was talking about having moved my librarian villagers earlier to retirement. So there's a lot of access points to this, but this one is my favorite. if you drop all the way down here, this down here is what I call Forever Grove. Forever Grove is an ancient city that I terraformed to push the jungle and lush cave thing to its extreme. So as you can see, there's tons of particles in the air. That's because the first thing I did after that guy over there helped me use a hoe to clear out all of the skulk down here, all of it, was I dug down 3 blocks in the entirety of the cave and destroyed all of the structures except for the central portal to kind of level the whole thing out. In the first layer, I replaced it with dirt, and then I replaced it with firefly bushes, and then finally stone, which I let get eaten by moss. So this first region that's right in front of us is what I call Scholar's Rest. It's where all of the librarian villagers ended up. It is currently nighttime, so they should all be asleep. Yeah, so every single one of these houses is unique. I didn't copy-paste any of them. They're all kind of an exercise in this, like, ziggurat building style, imagining, like, those who collaborated, the society that created that ziggurat up top and lived in this kind of area, what would they build like? I also have this idea that they kind of migrated here over time. I intend to put more ruins of a similar style up along the Ring River, with the idea that the ziggurat is embedded into the earth because they dug down further and further until they spread here, broke into this cave. And that's another example of me trying to use blocks that mean something. That this was a lush cave that had a lot of the trees from up above and bamboo from up above imported down by the villagers that came down here. This is my moss farm. But also that the lush cave got brought back up as well, that it spread naturally. And that story is really told through the types of blocks that are used down here. You don't find stone naturally occurring down here, yet everything is made out of the stone. Hence, this must have come from the surface. So I'm continuing the idea that there's like just natural geodes embedded everywhere in the cave. Of course, I had to hand make these. If we go through here, we have one of my favorite little terraforming projects, which is these little caves made entirely out of geode. I almost wish this were like a feature of vanilla Minecraft. I hope vanilla Minecraft continues to get more diverse types of caves. I'd really love to see an ice cave, but this is just kind of the thing that I enjoy making. So through here we got this little pond, and then it opens up to one of my favorite little spots here, just this decorative. I've got this mangrove tree. It's the only one I've ever put in a build. You can peek through the cave, and it's actually growing out of a geode lake, which you'll find several times around this build. If we go down here, you can see that I've put tropical fish in here as if it were a lush cave, and luckily it naturally spawns these little glow squids. The cave continues. I really don't like this pattern that I have here. Again, I'm renovating a lot of this stuff to just look a little more natural. Right through here is a cave entrance, and it's going to be pretty dark to what an undisturbed ancient city looks like. So just imagine tearing out all of the skulk, tearing down all of these builds, and then terraforming it and making it bright into here. So another thing to consider while I walk through here is that there is as much light as there is, even if it's still dim in some areas. And I'm working on that. Pretty much everything you see today is a work in progress, and I never mind going back and updating old builds. This is where I get my honey resources from. Again, I believe it's night, so we're not going to see any bees poking out. And I've got a little processing nook right here. So we get back on the path. I've got these allays. You've probably been hearing this heartbeat sound a lot throughout this tour. It's to keep the allays from wandering off, because they will most certainly wander off. But a lot of allays are just aesthetic, but they're just for decoration. But some of them are gathering resources for me. In this case, it's whenever I harvest... Nope, there's some bees. Whenever I harvest honeycombs, they have a tendency to end up in the tops of the trees because of how I place them, and the allays just help me pick those up. So we go through this other geode cave. This one has the answer to where I'm getting all of my amethyst from. I have all the way down here, this little decorated entrance, my amethyst farm with appropriate pickaxes for whatever I'm doing with it. And come up here, and basically what I've done is completely torn apart everything out of a naturally occurring amethyst geode except for the budding amethyst blocks. And then I've waterlogged the whole thing and added a conduit in the top so I can swim around and breathe and harvest this at my leisure. If we come back down here and walk through, that is not the only spot that I have this little tunnel. Over here is another surface access tunnel. I think that is the longest drop I have in this world right now. It became obvious to me that not everything can always come straight from the ziggurat, or else you're going to be making a million trips. So I've started to make a safe house in every single sub-region that I build in. It's really fun to do, and it helps me have like a handful of tools and materials that are relevant to the area I'm building in, so I don't have to run back and forth so much. So down here is my storage area, and this is built into a natural geode, which is why it is placed in the way that it is. It's why this whole cave exists, is so that I can have some kind of access point to this natural geode that I knew I wanted to live in. So these are all budding amethysts, and another way for me to harvest amethyst for my builds down here. That over here, this is the Caretaker of Forever Grove. This is an amethyst inlaid armor. And if we come through here, we have a region that is the most actively in development that I call the Strip. The original idea I had for it was that down here with the community was also going to be one of every type of villager that isn't the librarian villager, for the idea that they kind of staff and live and help make the community functional, because a bunch of librarians probably can't take care of themselves for everything they need. But that has fallen by the wayside a little bit in favor of just kind of recreating Forever Grove styled versions of the buildings and structures that you naturally find in an ancient city. I can be both. I think I'm going to work on that. But the main reason I kind of pivoted away from the original idea, which I still like, is that villagers really don't get along with each other AI-wise, and I really didn't want to deal with the whole, like, constant bed stealing, not being able to navigate to their job site blocks, that kind of thing that comes along with making a custom village. I didn't want to introduce that down here just yet. I assume in the future, one day, I'll come back and rework that in a way that's a little more coherent. If we come back here to this corner, not much to see. We've got this cute little amethyst geode pond with a few fish in it, and yet another access tunnel to the surface. This time, this one links to the hallway opposite to the ring entrance from the elytra tunnel out the back of my ziggurat lower levels. So it spits us out here. You can tell it's kind of color-coded. And here we've got stone because you're going up to the peaks, and then here we've got this amethyst pattern so we can drop down, and that tells me personally, yeah, this is definitely the entrance. So yeah, back down here. Because of this world's lack of biome diversity, I have to kind of create my own biomes a lot, and that lets me get a little more creative with the biomes than just the plain ones that come in. Most of the ideas I've had are like, what if it were existing biome, but cool in this new way? Or what if it were two biomes that are kind of similar at the same time? At the very depths, it's like lush cave, but also jungle with like a bunch of geodes in it. Very cool. If we come through here, another one of my style conventions, that on top of like the materials themselves quite literally meaning something. Like, I don't want to do like an impressionism thing that a lot of the texturing stuff does. Like, I do want this to be read as like this is actually granite, because it suggests like, oh, granite doesn't generate this deep. This has been imported by a society that moves down here. I also said I struggled to work without boundaries, so I really stalled on this build for a long time until finally I basically just drew like a circle around the whole build, the whole area, which was just this path. And then that divided everything up into subregions, and that made it really easy to get started. So we've got more of Scholar's Rest here. There's the southern half. You saw mostly the northern half. Now it's daytime, so everybody's awake. This is probably my favorite build that I made in here. It's just like so maximal for the little bit of space we have. I love the shapes in it. I kind of resent that my first build ended up being my favorite. Like I peaked immediately. But, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you just, like, really hit that stroke first try. But, I love that it's got 2 levels. I love everything about the shape of it, the location of it. Like I said, these guys used to sell me my books, so funny enough, a lot of them are very utilitarianly name-tagged, in case I ever have to come back down here and trade with them a little more. Something I've not had to do yet. Another thing that I'm developing kind of sneakily is that late into the greenery, I'm trying to have opportunity to do a little parkour. So I'll just show that off right now. Are you serious? Anyway, nothing like crazy, but I just like to have like little ways to run along the roofs. It just adds a little bit more character to the area and gives me something else to do. Makes each area feel a little bit more unique, you know? So if we come down here, this little tower is just another villager house, but it does have this cool little secret up here. You can climb the vines. And then I have actually terraformed up here into the upper reaches of the cave too, which I may do a lot more with one day, we'll see. But it kind of feels like it's got the potential to be an entirely other build on top of this existing one. But through this little cave, you can get like a nice overhead view of this central portal area. One of the things we're neglecting here is I do have this kind of farming district where all of the relevant things can get farmed branching off of this railroad, which is how we'll exit the area and get there later. The idea is that like the water sources here are just these flooded geodes that will kind of allow osmosis for water to move in and out. If you're looking at this and wondering how I got all this, over here will be your answer. So along this really dense tree line, this is actually like a natural fence. Allays and sniffers are hard at work. The sniffers, here's one now, dig up plant matter, these seeds, these ancient seeds from the moss, and then allays come by and grab them off the ground and deposit them here at this well where I have this signal going. It's a little miscalibrated, so it's not doing the heartbeat sound that you hear in a lot of the rest of the cave. But yeah, they come back and throw this stuff here. And then it piles up, and we can see the seeds here, and then I can plant them there, blah, blah, blah. That's the whole process. Here in the very center of Forever Grove is where I breed my allays. So we come through here. It's currently switched off, but I have an auto jukebox that just kind of plays like every classic music disc minus like 13, so all the old C418 music disc and the scary, except for the scary ones. And here I got the amethyst shards, because jukeboxes make allays come here and dance, and then you can breed them that way. But coming down here, you've basically seen the majority of this area. Here in the center is the largest geode lake, and I've got a couple of these axolotls running around. I wanted to add them to other builds, but they basically just kill every single thing in the water that isn't an axolotl, so that's kind of where they've been contained for now. Back on an older multiplayer realm that I used to host, I had this project where I'd linked up 6 ancient cities with each other via railroad. And so I'm redoing that here, but I'm way more into tackling these builds one at a time these days, so I don't have 6 that I'm building concurrently. Oh, that's funny. I wonder how this guy got stuck down here. Regardless, we're gonna free him. Oh, we got a couple down here. That's funny. Off you go. But that's in development. Right now, the rail doesn't go anywhere because the next ancient city is nowhere near to getting started. But theoretically, if I follow this path back up, one day it'll all loop back around to the origin. So by this point in the video, you've basically seen the most coherently linked together ideas of Forevermore. From here on out, I'm just going to kind of cut around because there's not a whole lot of like coherent travel between these areas, and show you some of the other stuff I've been working on. Okay, so this is that artificial lake that we saw to the northeast, and then goes into the Crescent Canyon that we saw in the north. So I call this the Gullet. I may rename it in the future, but it's named after an old build that I did. And this was basically my answer to saying, like, man, I don't really have a nice region to do underwater builds out here without going outside of what I consider to be Forevermore. I better make one. And of course, in making it, you know, I got to spend the time to do it anyway. I try to make it a little cooler than what we might find in a normal ocean. This is still very much under development. I got to put a bunch of coral down here and some other underwater structures. But I'll show you what I've got. What you're seeing in front of you, I'll flash on screen. Again, the before picture that you're seeing isn't perfectly how it was because the generation has changed a little bit, but it's pretty close. It used to just be a temperate forest in this giant, like, pit. This huge valley. Now, I went up here and made it a cherry grove biome, and I've got these pink sand beaches, which I'm going to do a little bit more maximalistly as I go. I still got to do a bunch of terraforming of getting tons of like pink petals and flowers and such up here, but this is kind of the start of it. And this transitions into pink clay, which at the very bottom goes into blue clay. When I say it transitions into pink clay, I mean the entire floor has been redone in clay, and not just done randomly in clay. It's done in a coherent repeating pattern. If you have a really keen eye as I pan across this, you might notice that this is the original cobblestone texture that was ever made for the game. So down here at the ocean's deepest points, I've got it done in shades of blue terracotta, blue and gray, and then as it goes up, it transitions to being more pink. So over here, this is another like mini safe house I have. I call this the bathysphere. So we can just go down in it, and when I go through, you're going to see with night vision, yeah, there is the repeating pattern throughout the whole thing. So just like with the Crown Mountain area being like, okay, this is a mountain that houses a jungle and lush cave mix, which also includes cool geodes, this is going to be like a warm tropical ocean with lots of coral and kelp and such, and some ruins that also has clay on the bottom of it in this cool pattern. And if you scratch past the surface of the clay, then you get prismarine is the rock that's on the inside of it, instead of, say, stone if you tunneled in through it. So yeah, it's just one little layer of clay and then prismarine behind it. This is one of my proudest little safe houses I've ever built. I made it specifically to be as small as I could get it. I think it fits this cool underwater theme, and the materials I've made it out of give a lot of opportunity. Creating a blend of like naturally sourced prismarine, because that's what the stone substrate is in this area, with copper, which is going to give more opportunity to say, like, where does the copper come from? I could do more copper-themed builds and terraforming as we go further down into the earth, or if I burrow more. And then also we have the real curveball, which is the warped wood from the nether. I use it initially just because it's blue, but I just see that as a huge opportunity to say, how does the nether tie into this build? And it's just going to make this biome feel even more unique when I find a way to work that in. I'm assuming that I'm just going to get like a nether access point, like maybe a large portal in here that's clearly been interacted with by whatever culture I start to cultivate down here. I do want to have a bunch of villagers living in underwater bubbles and stuff, and then on top have a cherry grove villager population that, while they both interact with each other, have like completely different cultures and separate building styles that are like living right on top of one another. My imagination just kind of explodes whenever you take these like unique opportunities to do your world building through the blocks that you're using. That's why I'm so attached to, like, even though I think using texture and stuff like new builds is really cool and makes them look really good, I really want to be intentional about what kinds of blocks I'm using for those textures. Up here is a map that I've kept preserved that I made just before I started to flood this area layer by layer. This is what the area looked like. You can see the cobblestone pattern that I've made out of the clay, and you can see how it transitions from blues and grays over to a mix of the two, and then pink. I've just kept this kind of preserved for myself. I have some photos that I'll throw on screen of what it looked like before I flooded it. I'll show that now. And just like all my other little regions, yeah, I've got my like unique suit of armor. I think this is the Tide or Coastal armor trim, and it's laid in with diamond because I couldn't lay it in with prismarine, and I needed something that looked bright blue. So yeah, you've got all your basic crafting blocks and such in here, everything you need to make whatever you need. Storage downstairs, and up top, I kind of moved all of my smelting downstairs as well, so this kind of frees up to just be a nice cool lookout point. The only other build that I've done down here, although I have many planned, is a copper oxidization field. So if you've done some research, you'll probably know that copper needs to be a certain number of blocks away from other copper blocks in order to oxidize the fastest. And I saw on Reddit that this was the pattern at which they oxidize the fastest with the best space efficiency. And so it kind of created this diagonal shape, and I thought that looked really cool for a building. So I've got this window that you can look out and see the rest of the area as it fills up. And then it was also a good spot for me to practice how I'm going to build this area up without using copper, because I can't use copper in this build or else it's going to defeat the purpose. It's going to make this stuff oxidize slower. So this is where I made the decision, after trying to hold off on it, that I was going to use tuff in this build, but I already have a great plan for where I'm going to say the tuff came from. Essentially, there's an ancient city down below this area that I can link up, and I think I'm going to terraform it with a lot of tuff, so that'll be the explanation that the ancient city and this area up here are going to be physically connected. So as we surface here, go past this artificial cherry grove biome, this next bit I'm just going to fly through. May not look super impressive. All of these trees are actually going to be chopped down and then replanted. I'm just trying to put podzol all over the place. But this artificial river is going through this canyon. I'll show some before pictures of what it roughly looked like. It was incredibly dense jungle. This is the thing I mentioned earlier. I had a friend help me clear out. I intend for this entire area to just be like mega taiga. And like I always ask, like, mega taiga and what? What else could make it cooler? So I really like the moss that forms in mega taigas, like the mossy cobblestone rocks. So I've decided that I'm going to also, once I get this river set all the way down to the northern ocean, which will, again, kind of help me make a path, which will help me build and plan things out a little bit better. A mega taiga with the trees, but I'm gonna like move every tree up by like 10 blocks and then plant it on some dirt and remove the dirt, replace that with wood, whatever. So like basically every tree is 10 blocks taller than it would have normally generated. All of the stuff that isn't podzol, which like kind of creates these blotches, all of the in-between space, instead of being grass, is gonna be a mix of like dirt, raw andesite, like coarse dirt, like mud, a lot of like just kind of earthy, muddy brown blocks. So this whole canyon is going to be mostly brown with like tons of like ferns and a little greenery poking out. I've decided probably no flowers at all, just trying to keep a consistent like style. I'm kind of looking at Frank Lloyd Wright, who did like most famously Falling Water, for architectural inspiration, but basically kind of a modernist area. And the purpose of this northern canyon, which I've just been calling it Crescent Canyon, because it's the shape of a crescent on the map, is it's going to be where I hold all of my like more historic and collective and trophy type builds. So like I was saying earlier, instead of just having like every single, I don't know, whatever collectible armor trim or having every pottery sherd just like sitting in various rooms, I think it would be cooler if it was like here is a building, and you go in, it's like, oh, this is where all the pottery is. Here is a building, and here's every type of tree in the game in this like conservatory, greenhouse area, whatever. I think that would be way cooler, and this is a massive area to spread out through, so it'll be very performance friendly to have like a building that over here I'm working on like an art museum. It's like that'll just be dedicated to paintings, and yes, it's a little intensive to load in like 40 something paintings at once, but the next building is a pretty good walk away, so it won't overwhelm the system at any point, and you get to walk through cool nature. I do anticipate most of this canyon being empty. I mean, like, there'll be tons of buildings, but it's just so massive, it'll be mostly negative space rather than being super, super dense like something like Forever Grove was. But that's enough talking about this region. I'll take you over to the last major region that I've been planning stuff on pretty heavily. So this out here is Meadowview. It's not much to look at right now. This is something I'm going to terraform into just being basically a really dense meadow. I currently haven't had much ideas beyond that, but this is one of the only areas in my main plane area that isn't just like stony peaks or some jungle variation. This is like actually plains and a little temperate forest, and this is the only village that is generated in this world on its own, and I've already started making some tweaks to it. So I had the idea this was going to be the farming area, and it was going along pretty well, but I think I'm going to end up tearing most of this apart just because I want to have full control over the way that the roads and the build flows, and I just don't think that building off of the random generation that comes default, there's just no logic to it, and it makes the terrain really, really messy. So I'm probably going to restart all this. But this is one of the last areas that I'm thinking about investing in. It's just kind of creating like your typical classic like medieval / like Switzerland-y looking kind of town over here. And because this valley connects really, really nicely through like caves and terrains and all kinds of stuff, all the way back up to the gullet here, I think it'll be fun to make a path and kind of show that all of these separate little towns and societies, these cultures, are not isolated from one another. They're distinct, and they don't inherently keep completely to themselves, but they're distinct enough that like they have a very clear visual style, but they still also communicate with each other. So it kind of helps me cheat a little bit in the build material. Like, it's not like a pink block could never possibly end up in Meadowview over here. Also, Meadowview is going to have like every single flower in the game growing around here, so that's probably a pretty good excuse to be able to use plenty of color. So as we wrap up on a final note, I'm going to show off some of the redstone stuff that I've done. I say that kind of sparingly because I honestly have not designed a good redstone contraption in my life, and anything good is generally just pulled from a tutorial, usually through Silent Whisperer. Okay, so now we're going to a naturally generated nether fortress, and what you're about to see is like the furthest I think I've ever pushed the rules of like what's fair in Minecraft, like what makes a legit world, I think, by most casual players' standards. So what I did is I took a nether fortress that was mostly buried in the wall. It would have been a lot easier to do it with a fortress that wasn't like that, but this is what I did. And I came and I mined out the walls and placed all these buttons, and then I made a creative copy of the world. I did that after I did all this. I made a creative copy of the world, and I ran a command block that just like made mobs die as soon as they spawned, and made it so that when a wither skeleton died, I put like a different block down on the floor where it died, and that helps me find out where they spawn. So basically I could spawn proof this entire area and place wither roses where they spawn, so that I just get nothing but wither skeleton spawn, so that it makes it a little easier to farm skulls. It's very boring running around here. I had on my old realm just a straight up arena where I killed everything, including wither skeletons. And what made that work and be really fun was that it was just a bunch of paths, and I put like soul sand down with like soul speed boots so I could run around really fast, and I would just listen to music and talk to friends and like sprint around just doing combat, and have like a little safe room with like potions and stuff in it, and like beacons everywhere. That was really fun. I'd like to get something similar to that going in here, or at a different nether fortress, but this has done the job to get my weather skulls sense. So sometimes when I'm having like a long conversation with a friend, I'll do it out here. But yeah, I figured out where they all spawn on a creative copy using command blocks. I literally opened up a notepad and wrote down the coordinates of every spawn point that I found, came back in here and recreated it, and I've been using it on survival since. And that's probably like one of the cheatiest things I've done on this world. But still can get achievements, still blah blah blah. That is really the line. If it doesn't disable achievements, I'm pretty much cool with it. Because otherwise, I'm gonna just not have fun on this world if it gets too cheaty. So here we're coming up on the very last thing I intend to show in this world. This is my bone block farm. It is, again, another Silent Whisperer tutorial. We'll get up to the top and then we'll look at the guts of the machine afterward. So I am actually going to demonstrate how this one works. So if you want to build one of these in your world, you can follow this tutorial on the channel that I'm going to link down there. So basically, you have one block of water in a mangrove swamp biome, and when there's just one block of water in it, tropical fish can spawn. Tropical fish and most fish have AI behavior that causes them to seek out deeper water. So you can exploit this by using the range in which they spawn around the player and their pathfinding to deeper water. You can push them to naturally seek out these trident killers. It's weird that every single one of these fish is like exactly the same. You can see we have this on switch. But firstly, just because things go weird with trident killers, I tend to go around and just reload them real quick. So the first thing we gotta do when we use this farm is make sure that all of the trident killers are actually loaded with tridents. They kind of have a habit of like clipping through the ground and not working. See, this one's missing. Okay, then we flip it on, sends a signal to trigger all the trident killers, and from there, you need to go out to that central platform that has like a nice even spacing for all the fish to spawn around you. And then if you hold a looting 3 sword, they'll drop even more fish and bones. And this just creates an insane number of bones and tropical fish items being dropped. So like I said earlier, a lot of Silent Whisper tutorials, they teach you how to build this far and then they just end. You really got to make an item sorting collection. And I don't blame them for not showing the same like item sorting and item compression thing over and over and over again every tutorial, because he's got other tutorials to do that stuff too. So we get into kind of like a little bit of spaghetti redstone. What I'm about to show you probably could have been done a lot better, and it's also an amalgamation of multiple tutorials from several different pretty small YouTube channels with only a few uploads. I don't think I'd be able to find them. And just like I said, like you leave a chunk, some of these things that kind of lock up. They're not the best systems. But basically, I have this system that takes all of the drops under a trident killer, and then this just drops bones and tropical fish, ideally. Anything that doesn't fit those two things gets sorted out into the wall where it gets burned. And then the bones go down one side. The fish basically just go straight to the storage system. The bones come down as bones. They get loaded into this crafter that has a repeating signal. The crafter is time to turn the bones into bone meal. The bone meal goes in here and it's turned into bone blocks. And the bone blocks come down into this system right here, which loads them up into a shulker box. And when the shulker box fills, it automatically breaks and goes into this chest. And that's how this whole thing works. I've turned off all of the fish collection, and now it all just runs into the wall where it gets burned, because it just creates lag, and more importantly, it takes up a ton of storage. I just have to keep loading up more and more and more shulker boxes, and then those shulker boxes have to go somewhere, and I got more tropical fish than I'll ever be able to use a long time ago. But yeah, I had fun decorating this one. This one doesn't go with any convention of like local materials or whatever because it's not really part of Forevermore, so I'm just doing whatever. I basically decorated it just to have fun. I've certainly considered, there is a lush cave version of this build that I've been considering making since there's so many lush caves around the immediate area. So I may one day remake this thing, but there's not really any need to. That would just be for fun. And honestly, redstone is the last thing that I think of when I think of fun time in Minecraft. So we'll see. We'll see how realistic that is. There you go. And with that, that's basically the end of this world tour. I think that's about everything that's worth showing. This is my first, like, Minecraft gaming, any kind of, like, YouTube video in that category that I've ever made. It took a lot to figure out. I'm sure there's a lot that could be done a lot better, of course. You know, if you like this, subscribe. I have other video ideas, but it's just going to depend on how much I enjoy the process. At the time of recording this right now, I've had to double back and record this a few times to get it right, over some technical challenges and just being better at, like, talking and narrating the situation. So if it's fun for me, I'll try doing it, because I got one or two more ideas in the pipe right now. Alright, thank you for watching.